Welcome today, Tom Vicini from Operation Unite. And I will yield the floor.
Actually, my name is the most often mispronounced. It's actually Vicini, but that's close enough.
Sorry,
Butchered worse than that.
I've been butchering names all day today.
So I guess that I became president of Operation Unite October of last year. I started with Unite back in 2006, and actually at the time I started working for Unite, I was mayor of the city of Lynch in Harlan County. So I've been mayor for 13 years there, and I was going to have to run again, but I saw what the drug problem was doing to our community firsthand. And I knew that as a small town, we didn't have the resources to deal with it. So I found out about Operation Unite through Karen Engel at that time, now Karen Kelly, who worked for the congressman's office. And I'd worked with her with pride. So I contacted her and applied for a job in Hazard, and 17 people were interviewed that day. And I was blessed to get the job. I knew I was going to get it when the interview ended, because I just had the feeling that's what I was supposed to be doing. So I did get the job, and for about 5 years I worked out at Hazard, working with community coalitions in the Kentucky River area. So I served as mayor for 13 years in the city of Lynch. Background includes 22 years as a coal miner. I worked in the coal mines there for U.S. Steel, for Arch Mineral Corporation. Worked for the Defense Department, a nonprofit that was doing work for the Defense Department, making uniforms for the military. As human resources man, quality control man, a lot of other things. So I saw firsthand, the devastation that our community was suffering because of the drug epidemic. So I wanted to do something about it. And I've always been community oriented. One thing that you'll see here a little bit later on is that I coach baseball, and I have for 46 years. I just don't like to give up a good thing. So I've always coached just one team and one league, because I love working with little kids, 9 to 12-year-olds. That's all. I've been offered a middle school job, even a high school job, and I always turned it down because I didn't want to work with anything with small kids. So one of 12 children. I was one of the older ones, so I helped raise my little brothers and sisters. So I've always worked with youth, and that's been my life passion. So when I got this job with Unite, and I knew that we were going to do a whole lot of drug prevention and working with kids, right up my alley. I mean, I couldn't ask for anything more. It's been a dream come true. I say all the time, I said, I'm getting paid to do what I would do without money, because it's what I've always done. So, but now I got a whole gang of people that work with me that really do an even better job than I do in terms of drug prevention. Tell you a little bit about Unite. We're a nonprofit. We were organized in 2003, so almost our 21st year now, and we serve Southern and Eastern Kentucky. We provide strategic partnership, provide leadership, provide educate, promote education, coordinate treatment, support law enforcement. That tells you a little bit about who we are. When I started, we were really heavy in law enforcement, and a lot of people remember that part of Unite. They remember that we used to conduct drug roundups, and at that time in 2003, we needed that intervention because there was a lot of illegal activity going on. Well, the laws changed over the years. Things got different. Our funding decreased from about $10 million a year to about $2 million a year. So that law enforcement element changed quite a bit. We were doing street level detective work then. Now we don't do anything like that. Now we have 4 officers. 3 of those officers work for the DEA. They do a great job of working all over the country, trying to keep the drugs from getting into this area. And that's a simple way of saying that, but they're doing all kinds of great things, and working in Florida and Philadelphia and Atlanta and everywhere. doing, working with, to get big deals, the distributor. So that's what we're working on really hard. We have another law enforcement, officer that his main responsibility is to be a liaison with, local law enforcement agencies. So he works with like sheriff's departments and, city police departments. He works with, Kentucky State Police. And we provide some buy money for their investigations. We don't do the street level, but we do provide some resources so that they can do, street level work. For our law enforcement group is excellent. They're very dedicated. They were doing community policing. I always say this before community policing was a thing. The second day I was working for Unite, decided they were doing a roundup in my beloved Harlan County. Jones's Creek is the way they said it. So the law enforcement director and his assistant said, I'm going on that roundup with him. I said, okay, whatever you all tell me to do. So I got in the back of that police car and we headed up Jones's Creek. And right before we got to the last turn to go up there, he said, now I want you, when the shooting starts, I want you to get down in the floor. I said, so what? He said, yeah, when the shooting starts, I said, you'll probably be okay. Well, he said, well, he was giving me a hard time. But my job was to, they did arrest a bunch of people that day, like 30 or 40. But my job was to hand out flyers telling the residents in that area that we were going to have a community meeting. Because we weren't there just to throw people in jail. We were there to get rid of the drug problem in the area. And it really had a large effect on me because it made me understand that we were all about helping people. We weren't about putting people in jail and forgetting about it. I love that part of doing that. So I'm proud of our law enforcement people. They did an excellent job. And I've talked about most of this already, but we have 3 that work out of the DEA office in London. We do operate a 24-hour drug tip line. We have medication drop boxes in each county for discarded, medications that you don't need. We work a lot with foreigners and things like that to get medications that are not needed and not used and even expired. We want to get them off the street. So we've got these med boxes. They look like big meal boxes, and they're in law enforcement agencies. You just come in, you don't have to sign anything. You just drop it in that box, and we work with the DEA to dispose of it. We also work with the DEA to own the National Take Back Days. And what was our pound? Is this something about 3,000, 3,500 pounds?
Yeah, about 2,500 this.
2,500. Normally it's over 3,000, isn't it?
Yes.
Pounds of medications we pick up from that DEA take back.
Probably have to point it to the left.
There we go. Treatment recovery. We have some of our treatment people here with us today. First of all, we have our Kentucky Health Statewide Call Center, Jamie Gillen is here. There she is. And you all heard a lot about it out in the main room. But one of the things that I like what Van said, and he's a big proponent of ours, is that no complaints. In fact, they do some kind of research. Jamie, to explain that, they were doing the research and we rated like 96%.
I don't know the list, but I believe all of within the state of Kentucky, the call center was on that list. And the call center actually scored higher than any other agency that they called. And they did multiple calls and we scored a 9.6 out of 10.
We're really proud of the work that they do. And like Van said, we asked to expand our operations. They're not telling us to do it, but we asked to do it because we eventually want to be 24/7. So it's a matter of money. And so we can get the people that we have to do it. So we did get a little increase and probably had one more person, but we got to talk about that a little bit. Treatment vouchers, we still issue our treatment vouchers. When I started, and I was the only organization paying for treatment. Nobody else was. Private insurance wasn't paying. There was no Medicaid, no Medicare, none of it, no core, none of that was happening. So at that time, we would have a waiting list of 3 months, pretty close to it. That was terrible. That was terrible because, you know, you give a drug, somebody addicted to drugs 3 months to decide whether they want to go to treatment or not. Yeah, they can change their minds 90 times. We're going through every day. So now there's all kinds of other options, but we still give our treatment vouchers, and they're in the amount of what, Jesse? $5,400 for 90 days. So we're still issuing those treatment vouchers. And we're also paying for recovery residence assistance. So if somebody's going into a sober living facility, $250 is what we pay to help them get started. Just right.
Yeah, Sean. I'll be your clerk.
Very much taken.
I will.
United Community Coalitions, that's what most of my work in my early years or first 12 years of working for United was involved with. What we try to do with our community coalitions is get a good cross section of people in the community to come together and to bring different perspectives and different needs and different solutions to the problems that we face in our communities. So we like to have educators, we like to have law enforcement, we like to have elected officials, we like to have teachers, educators, we like to have citizens that have been impacted by the substance abuse problem. Just anybody that's really interested in doing something about the problem. So what we do is we give these community coalitions, we've got 33 of them, $7,500 every 6 months, and they come up with their own prevention plan or aftercare programs or whatever. We see Terry back here, he runs a Celebrate Recovery program in Harlan County. And we provide him money to buy books and chips and all those kind of things that you do in Celebrate Recovery. We've probably sponsored hundreds of archery programs.
Yeah, I can't tell you the number off the top of my head, but we put over $750,000 into schools with the archery program.
Right. And the reason we've decided on that, and that's a really good point here, is that we wanted something where you didn't have to be a 6'4", perfect athlete to participate. We wanted something that would be, you know, any child can do it. And we sponsored the state archery championship here about a month ago, and it was awesome. How many teams were there? 70 or 140?
300 kids or something like that.
It was great because these kids were all shapes and sizes, and they were just having a great time. So it's a good, and you know, it's just one of many sports. We do art programs, we do music programs, we're funding music programs, just about anything that you put a drug prevention element in. If you can do something that will give a message that we're doing this because we don't want you to go down the road of using substances illegally, then we're willing to fund those type of programs. Local problems require local solutions. We offer ways for concerned citizens to get involved, and that's what we want to do. We want the community to get involved. Our Unite Service Tour. We had a wonderful experience here this past fall. Crystal Smallwood, who is our director of the USC program, and I went to Berea College, and the national director of AmeriCorps was there. And she basically said that our program is a model program for the United States. And we do math tutoring. Scores increase somewhere from 35 to 50% after they've been through our math tutoring program. We teach the Too Good for Drugs curriculum. Telling somebody out there today, I've been to those sessions, and it's 10 weeks of session. Those kids, after they've been through 10 weeks of Too Good for Drugs, they can answer anything you want to know about the drugs. They learn it all, and about resistance skills and all the things that they need to know. They're educated in it. Now, we hope that they'll use those skills the rest of their life, but it's a great program. Then they work with volunteers in the schools. And then we start Unite clubs. Those are anti-drug clubs in the schools, and we give them $500 a year to run those clubs to pay for materials that they might need to do in their program. Education and prevention. I'll have to say this right now. I remember sitting in a boardroom and Congressman Rogers was in there. This was about 8 years ago. And we had talked about voucher program, which everybody was interested in sending people to treatment. We still are. If people need help, we want them to get help. Then we talked about law enforcement. And we talked about, some issues that we had there and how we could be more effective in that area. And the conversation after about an hour kind of stopped. He said, anything else we haven't covered? I said, yes, sir, there is. He said, what's that? I said, prevention. So I don't think we're talking enough about prevention. Now, this is 8 years ago, and it's been a hard sale for some reason. But prevention's key. It's the key. And that's been my focus since October the 1st, and even before then, with what I could do, is we need to install prevention in our school system. I'm a believer that there should be a curriculum in this state, K through 12, so they get consistent anti-drug messaging, consistent prevention messaging. That's the only way we're ever going to solve this problem, because listen, if you spend all your resources just sending people to treatment or just arresting people, you're never going to solve the problem, because you're going to have a new generation coming up to take their place. So you've got to put this money into prevention. We've got to teach these kids and create a new culture. And it may take a couple of generations. I don't know. But we're making a difference. And you'll see from the folks that we've got here today what's actually happening out there. Vaping programs. So, we just learned, was it last Monday? One Pill Can Kill presentation with the DEA. So we're partnering with the DEA, which we're really thrilled about doing. Why internet safety is essential. We're doing that program with elementary school kids. Doing all kinds of great things. And I'm not going to talk too much on that because they'll be telling you some of these things. Our on-the-road drug prevention trailer. Mark, how many kids have we served this year?
This year was a little over 6,500.
6,500 kids. You can see our mobile trailer there on the move. And we've been, what's the farthest we've been at? Nelson County?
We've been in Nelson County, so we've been we just done Jefferson County, Jefferson.
Which is another point I'm trying to make. We go to state legislature every 2 years and we ask them to fund us. And a lot of those legislators look at us and go, we all just serve the 5th congressional district. And that's just, southern and eastern Kentucky. So I had this bright idea that we need to serve 4 places in the state. If we're going to ask them to vote for us, to give us funding every 2 years, we need to give them something in return. It just makes common sense to me. Problem is, we're funded every 2 years. I mean, we're used to that. I mean, if we don't get that money every 2 years, we don't exist. But we also leverage that money to get about $11 more million every year in other grants, which we're really good about that too. But anyway, we're trying to take this program across the state. It's going to take us a while. One of the things that I'm trying to do also is to, with opioid abatement money and some other grant money, I'm trying to expand our operation by adding 10 counties to our service area. Really hoping that we can do that. It'll be along our western border. This program is very, everything we do, we'll try to make it interactive. We want the kids to get involved. You know, you can do a lot of good with kids if they're having fun. And if you set them in a room and you start preaching to them, they're gonna get tired of it. They're gonna get very bored. So we do activities where they're involved, where they're doing things that it really makes a huge difference. Our summer programs, we've got 7 basketball camps coming up with Jerry Colson, who used to play for UK. Those are starting next June 4th. Next Thursday. Yeah. That's Challenge Academy in Harlan. And then, for the next 3 weeks after that, 2 each week, right?
Yep.
So, and we're going, I don't remember them all, but Nelson is one and Knox County is one.
It's Morgan, Nelson, Jackson, and that's the last one. I'm doing more on the bottom. So, Jackson, and then Martin, and then, Lincoln, and then, Bath and Knox, then Bath. So I think Knox County is what day?
18th.
The 18th of June. If anybody's interested in attending, there's a flyer you can pick up on the table.
Yeah, and they're all free. We give all the kids a basketball, we give them a free t-shirt, we feed them at the end, and, we just have a lot of fun. Jared Colson is about as good leaders you could ever get. He's a good Christian man that has never used any kind of drugs or tobacco in his life, and he gives a great message to kids. Camp Unite is, July the 16th to the 19th. And that's a 4-day, 3-night leadership adventure program for middle school kids. There's kids that are completing 6th, 7th, and 8th this year, this spring. We're going to University of Pikeville. We keep them busy from the time they get there Tuesday morning till they go home Friday afternoon, doing all kinds of fun things. We do have mentors within. The most successful part of Camp Unite to me is the mentor program, because we'll bring juniors and seniors in high school as junior mentors, and then we'll have college age students that are their team leaders and mentors. And they do a lot of things with these kids, and kids every year in the survey will tell us that that's their favorite part of the camp, is being mentored by these kids, these young adults who are really trying to help them, give them hope in their life. Then we do a lot of fishing programs, hooked on fishing, not on drugs, that's what HOPNUT stands for. So we're just doing anything we can to interact with kids and make it successful and fun for them. We want them to enjoy that and slip a message in there every once in a while. We don't beat them over the head with it. We believe that drug prevention is the best harm reduction. And I can build a case for that. I mean, we think that, if you implemented prevention throughout their early years, and I'm talking about as soon as kindergarten, then you're going to have a whole lot of less abuse and harm in the future. 675,000 plus youth have participated in our prevention programs. That's a lot of kiddos. All right, children impacted by the opioid epidemic. 45,000 children under 18 who either lived with an addicted parent, lost a parent due to death or incarceration, were removed from their home, placed in foster care, or accidentally ingested an opioid. 45,000. Kinship care, we're ranked 46. Kentucky ranks 46 in the nation from 2021 to 23 at 6%. The U.S. average is 3%. These are situations where kids are cared for by somebody other than a parent in their home. I know at one time we heard a statistic that about half the kids in some of our counties were being raised by somebody other than their parents. This is us. Here's my story. First of all, this is my girlfriend. We've been my girlfriend for 31 years. And people ask me why we're not married, and I say I never rush into anything. These are my babies, these two. Now, I coach this bunch. That's me coaching. The boy and the taller ones are mine, and that's another grandson there. The thing about it is none of them are my biological kin. None of them are. They're my kids. So they're all my kids. He plays ball for me and he's a real character, you can tell. But when that first time that, when we got him, she was 2 and he was 1. And working with Unite, I had them inside that I knew their parents were both going to be arrested. I didn't know when because I didn't want to know when. In case it slipped out, it wasn't going to come from me. So I told law enforcement, I said, all I want you to do is the morning that you're going up there to get them, is call me, I don't care if it's 4 in the morning, because I want to get them out of the house before it happens. So they did. They called me about 6 that morning. And I went up to the house and both of them were in diapers and that was it. Just walking around the house and just, you can't even imagine what a mess it was. I wouldn't even go in. It was that bad. I told Mom, I said, I'm going to take them to breakfast. She said, right now? It's about 7. I said, yeah, I just want to get them, take them out. She said, it's awful early. I said, yes, please get them ready. So I did. I got them out of the house. We've had them ever since that day. And I'm glad to say the mother's doing great. But we've had them so long that she loves the fact that they're living away. And she started a new family and everything, so everything's peaceful. The dad, unfortunately, is not doing very well. He never has done very well. So I love them just like they're my children. They are my children. And there's a basketball camp, one of the shooters, not Grace basketball camp. So people ask how hard it is. Well, I'm 74. It's the best thing in my life. Let's go to the next slide. I just love those kids. And they love each other. They have built a bond because they had each other, they had started a new life and they do realize they're very smart about this thing. They know the situation. They understand it clearly. And they love their mother and they love their dad. We don't discourage that. And that's a beautiful picture, isn't it? I picked them up from school one day. We went up to Kingdom State Park and they were doing that, so I just took a picture. So they're great kiddos. Both of them straight A students. And both of them, he plays baseball and basketball and cross country, really good at cross country. And she was softball superstar and straight A student, baby club. She just got back from Nashville, spending the weekend in Nashville with the baby club. So they're great kids. So how to prevent drug use, the do's, share family history about substance use and mental health, talk about safe use of medications, be curious about their lives. I'm in a position where I know a lot that's going on, so we talk about it all the time. We don't try to hide anything. We talk about how, what to look out for with your friends and things like that. Seek resources, your school counselors and so forth. Ask questions, starting with how, what, and describe and tell me about. Look for changes in your teens struggling in school or with friends. And I deal with a lot of other youth. I always have. When you coach, I've dealt with a lot of kids that were having substance abuse problems in their family. So I've had to deal with a lot of those situations on a personal basis. Encourage children to engage in activities such as sports, martial arts, and the arts, and we do that. Don't think drug use is a fad or a phase. The worst thing I ever hear a parent say, well, they're just using, and I've heard that a lot over the years. They're just taking a drink or just using alcohol, man. They're just smoking marijuana. They're just doing this. Well, that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to teach them from an early age that they don't need any of those things to have a good life and a successful life. Don't blame yourself as a parent. Instead, seek help. Even if it's anonymously at drugfree.org. Don't use the term drug addict. Shame and labels reduce willingness to seek help. Don't isolate your child. They need those community and those social connections. Have just one conversation instead. Don't have just one conversation. Instead, keep talks brief and ongoing during car rides or walks. So we don't ever just sit down and have discussions about not using drugs. It'd be something like, well, I heard somebody at your school got caught with a vape today. Yeah, well, They don't, I said, I don't want to know who. They said, well, yeah, two or three of them do. I said, what do you do about it? Well, we tell them not to do it. I said, well, I said, tell them, you know, you need to spread that word and talk to maybe somebody that can help them get the help that they need, maybe a school counselor or a principal. That's probably most of what I'm going to do. The best thing that I have done in this position is put the staff together. That's what I'm most proud of. It's the people that work for me. And I asked them to be here. This was my idea. I said, you know, I'm going to talk for 2 hours. There's no way. So I want my people, the ones that are working out in the schools, the ones that are making an impact in the lives of children. I want them to be here today. And I want you all to meet these people. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But at this time, they will talk to you. You can ask them questions. We've got a few questions ourselves in case you're not asking any. But at this time, you all want to come up here or you want to sit there? Yeah, that's right. Courtney, you're going to give an overview.
What slide do you wanna?
There's only one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You may want to have them in the chair up front because of the live stream.
Yeah, well, let me do the brief overview and then do that. So my name is Courtney Maynard and I am our prevention programs coordinator. And as Tom mentioned, UNITE has always been within the schools at a prevention, providing prevention within the schools. But this last year, thanks to OAG and his vision, we were able to do it at a much greater capacity. And I know Mark had briefly mentioned our on the move numbers. And so what we really focused on this last school year, roughly since about September, has been our on the move program, which you saw the trailer for, and then our anti-vaping program, which goes from 4th to 5th grade this year for the first time, as we saw the need in elementary school students, to middle school to high school. And then our WISE program, which covers grades 4 through 6 and targets internet safety, refusal skills, concentrates on cyberbullying, and really paints a picture of what that looks like for these adolescents. And so in that time frame, since we have combined and put those 3 programs into the schools, since September, we have serviced over 16,000 students. And so these, while I work a lot in our administrative duties and our grant writing and ensuring that we get our pre and post surveys, which we'll talk a little bit about, the staff that you're going to meet in just a minute are really the hands and feet of this program. They're out there with the students every day. They are anointed to do so. I truly feel like it, and you'll see it too when you hear them speak about what they're doing. But so those are our 3 programs that we currently have circulating in a nutshell. Now this summer, we are very busy to provide more in the upcoming school year. We will have an internet safety course for middle schoolers that we are going to call SMART. Ethan, can you tell us what SMART stands for?
Social media awareness and being responsible with technology.
And so we are currently developing that for 7th through 8th grade because we've had the need for it. Teachers are asking us, more so hearing while the younger students learn about safety, they will have the same learning objectives, but these students will also learn about the importance of what that looks like for collegiate level, for scholarships, for jobs, and just kind of how what you put out there is forever. We are working on, in the new school year, we will be implementing Baldwin Life Skills, WIDE-OWL, not to be confused with our internet safety for the lower grades, but it will cover grades K through 3. And what that's going to look at is it's a 3-day presentation mode, and not to be done, doesn't have to be done consecutively. But it will start with teaching them about healthy habits and choices, move into discussion about prescription medications, and then the 3rd day we talk about substances and how they can make choices to prevent that. And so as Tom mentioned, we want K through 12 programming, and that will provide us with that. That is an evidence-based program. Our other programs, luckily, UNITE is able to adapt those as needed. So we had the Challenge Academy reach out to us, and they wanted our vaping program, but they also wanted to focus a little more heavily on THC and the Delta. We were able to do that and go speak with them, and Josie was able to do that. So we can adapt to whatever is needed. Our prevention staff often is in the school after they do programs. They're eating lunch with these students, they're playing in the gymnasium with them, and really pouring into them and showing that they're familiar with our staff at this point. And so while this was a learning opportunity this school year, we've really built a foundation for where we're headed in the next school year this summer. This summer, we would like to offer the opportunity to speak with adults and train adults. I know they mentioned we recently trained on one field skill that will focus on high school students and adults. We have a freedom over fentanyl presentation that we have developed, which focuses on adults and high school students. And I don't think there's any of those that highlights
Life in record.
life with a record, which we are revamping this summer to be able to provide. And Carl will speak a little bit about that in a minute. But if you guys would like, we'll bring up the prevention staff.
Just all bring a chair.
Bring a chair, yes, just bring a chair up and then we'll let them introduce themselves.
We probably can bring us off during the live one. You're all right with that?
No, don't let me go.
You're all right?
Maybe it won't.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do that song. I'm sweating.
So I've already introduced myself. Again, my name is Courtney, and we will just start with Mr. Carl Barney. And if you all will please introduce yourself, and if you have a specific amount of counties that you cover, please say what those are and what your role is. If you have.
Okay, so I'm Carl Barney. I am technically speaking the prevention programs assistant. I'm Courtney's assistant. And so the counties that I'm serving as their prevention education person are Bath, which is a new county to Operation Unite. Bath County was just in November is the #1 overdose death rate per capita in the country. Bath County, Kentucky. It is right in between Mount Sterling and Moorhead on I-64. And a lot of people there were they're caught unawares. And so their thought about it was at first, well, that means that other people are coming here and are doing drugs from here. But no, that's not how those numbers are recorded. What that means is there are more Bath County residents that are dying from drug overdoses than any other county per capita in the country. And so we've done a lot of stuff there. We did a march with their 5th grade and up, where we left from the high school. We walked around the city block carrying banners, all of them wearing Operation Unite Club shirts, just to show the county and the town that these kids are for real. We're not going to put up with this. And then I got to speak to them in the gym. About 1,000 kids at the same time in the gymnasium some people would think that's a nightmare, but that's my jam. I love that. And so we had them on each side, which is really hard. So I just run back and forth like a Pentecostal preacher. It was so fun. And so I just shared my story about him. I'm a person in long-term recovery. And so I got to share my personal story a little bit and then just empower them. That is our job. We are, I call us hope injectors. And so our job is to just let these kids know that we don't consider them a victim. A lot of people would say these are the biggest victims of opioid crisis. I agree with that statement, but we can't treat them that way. We have to use that to empower them, because when we talk to a group of 7th graders, I let them know that, look, you know more about addiction than any other group of 7th graders that have ever lived in the history of the world. You know what this does. You know what decisions can be made right now to stop this in your own life. You don't want your kids to grow up the way that you've had to grow up. So Bath County, sorry, that was my first county. I'm not going to talk about all of them that way. So basically, I'm Bath County and on the I-64 corridor east of there. So Bath, Rowan, Carter, and Boyd. And then you go to Elliott, and then McGoffin, and then Morgan, and Wolf, and Menifee. It's in between there too, Frenchburg. So those are my counties, and I'm building relationships with those folks. I've been with Unite for 12 years, So I've developed relationships all over southern and eastern Kentucky. For a long time, I was one of the only people who would go into schools and do any sort of prevention programming. So I've developed a lot of relationships with our Family Resource Youth Service Centers in all of our schools, and we had the opportunity to go speak at the Fall Institute. And we're going to be speakers at the Victory Over Violence, which is the Family Resource Youth Service Center Conference during this summer, just to let them know that we are a resource to them. And the best thing about any of the Unites programming that we're going to talk about from this point on is that it's free. We don't charge anything to go into the schools. And people who are doing this kind of stuff, who are going in and speaking about vaping, are charging thousands of dollars to do these presentations. And then as soon as they take the money and they run. But that's not what we want to do. We don't believe that that's going to be successful. We want to build relationships with these kids. We want to see them 3, 4, 5 times a year. So that when we walk into the building, they're like, hey, it's Carl, hey, it's Josie, it's Ian. You know, we want that. I cherish that because I know that we're having it. So, anyway, I'll let you.
Name, role, towns.
So Carl's a tough act to follow. So my name is Josie Cruz. I'm an area prevention coordinator for Operation Unite, originally from Clay County. So I also am in what you consider long-term recovery. I have so many different layers to my lived experience that I can see the purpose in my life. And every time I get to speak to kids, that it really is a love greater than me that's resonating with them. So I have 9 counties total. Have all the schools in those counties, count alternative schools, it adds up to 95 schools. So I have Whitley County, Prairie County, Wayne County, Pulaski County, Knox County, Clay County, Leslie County, Bell County, Harvard County. And I can tell you, I, like most things in my life, when I came on board with Operation Unite, I think I overestimated myself or underestimated the problem. We were in one of the first schools I got to go into, go on the move, and they had their day treatment school outside of the school. And so I got to meet the principal that day, and I was like, man, having just graduated college last year, I had studied on fatherlessness in America because that, for me, I lived with 5 families in 3 states for 18 years of my life because of addiction, because of dysfunction, because of all of those things. And so it's been generational in every way in my family. And so that's a question that I asked. Like, hey, how many of your kids are day treating your fatherless? And he said, I'll do you one more than that. He said, not a single kid in my day treatment school has a single parent in their life. And I can tell you, like, that was the moment for me where I was like, okay, God, I understand more now why this is the place that you directed me towards. And so I went to the principal of that school, and it's middle school and high school together, and the Frisk. I also asked them what were the demographics and the things they were looking at, and they said around 60% of their kids also fit that criteria. They don't have either one of their parents in their life. And so that was really eye-opening for me. I can tell you when I was in my interview and Tom offered me the job on the spot, and I share this with kids every time I speak to them almost. I'm like, hey, you guys need to understand that there are people in the school that love you, but there are people at Operation that love you enough. They've allowed for me to be here today. And, I tell them, Tom looked me in my eyes in the interview. The president of the company said our kids are facing things they shouldn't be facing. They're going through things they shouldn't have to go through. You need to be the hands and feet that are loving these kids and educating these kids and empowering these kids to be the real agents of change that we so desperately need. And so I could tell you in the messaging with from 3rd grade to 12th grade this year that we were speaking to, it's resonating with them. When you're genuinely saying, hey, you are the one that can change things now. You can change your classmates' lives. You can change the culture in your classroom, in your school, in your homes, and in your communities, in every place from there. And when you see a 3rd grader that resonates with them, it lets you know that this is not only needful, but this has to happen. And so a lot of our kids, you guys, I'm sure already know, the roles that they're needing aren't being met. So we have to become that. The only way we're going to do that is working together. So this is a wonderful thing that's happening. It's a wonderful time to be a part of any of this. I believe this generation, there's going to be an army that rise up out of this. And the mess that we've left them to deal with, I think they're going to do better. I believe their tides are going to shift. I think things are coming. And it's just a wonderful thing, going to be a part of it. And I think that's about all I have.
So my name is Robin Parker. As Carl Josie, I have a recovery story. I have been working with Unite for 6 months. I work for On the Move with Mark, and we service 33 counties and hopefully 10 more counties coming up. And so I'm very blessed to have the job that I have. I know that I am where I'm supposed to be because, as they say, when you go into these school systems and you share your story with them, a lot of them instantly grasp what you're trying to say to them because a lot of them are facing the same things at home. They're facing addiction. They're facing their mother or their father going through the same things that I went through. And so when we share these stories with them, they know that they're not alone. And not only are we telling them, hey, don't do the same mistakes that I did, we're also giving them hope for their mother, their father, their uncle, their cousin. And that's worth everything, guys, because these kids are suffering. And I never knew at what extent they were suffering until you walk into these schools and you look them in the eyes. And they will break your heart. And I'm just thankful to be here. I'm excited to see where this next year goes. I'm sorry, I don't have like everything that they do. This is a wonderful group of people. I've never in my life been around people that really truly care. And when they say they care, they mean they care. So I'm just excited to see where we go in this next chapter, guys.
And as Robin said, we're bringing these conversations to the forefront. So these kids have it's a common conversation. They're not hiding what's going on anymore because we're talking to them about it. Adults are talking to them about it and they don't have to feel ashamed of something they shouldn't feel ashamed of or anyone should feel ashamed of. So we're blessed to be able to do that. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I promise I'll keep it short, because I don't know what the next questions are gonna be. But my name is Ethan Simon, and I'm originally from Portland. Some of you I know already. The counties that I serve Laurel, Owsley, Lee, Lincoln, Rapids. I think I have 8. Let's see, what's the other? Perry, Rockcastle, and then there's one more. No, I said that was
Owsley.
Owsley, Lee, Lincoln, yeah.
You got 20?
No, that's okay.
You can just float around.
But yeah, so I'm an area prevention coordinator and then I also help Dale as well. So I kind of do both. I was the first one in this role, so I got hired in October. And I would love to tell everybody about how much I bothered Tom. You know, one of my former bosses, I said, I'm looking for a new job. By the way, my background is nothing in this whatsoever. So I come from a tourism background. And then I come into this and she said, reach out to my buddy. You know, we grew up in Harlan together. And so I reached out to Tom like this time last year. And I think since March of 23, yeah, I got hired in October. And every month I was texting Tom and I was like, you got anything? You got anything? And I don't even know what I was going to do. Go there. I didn't know what the role was. He said, what would you like to do? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, are they on the website? Like, can I have a list, please? But it's great. It's truly a blessing, like they said. And, you know, I don't have that story. And a lot of kids ask me that. They're like, well, you know, you didn't go through that hardship of, you know, coming out of recovery and you're in recovery and you didn't have that background. How are you able to go in and talk to these kids and relate? And, you know, I think that my story can resonate with them to say, you know, you can go down that pathway, but look what happens when you don't choose that pathway. And, you know, these 3 people right here, I look up to, you know, when they speak, I'm like, man, I can't do that. You know, I don't have that. But then they tell me, they're like, no, you're who we wanted to be. You know, like me, Jesse, and Hannah, I think we're the 3 youngest, right? You know, like we are who these people wanted to be. And so this is what we're one of these kids that we're going out in the schools to be. And it's just a blessing, and so I think Courtney's gonna ask us some questions probably about what we're seeing, so I'll save that until then. Alan?
Ellie, and I am actually in Pikeville. I work out of the Presidentsburg office and I have 6 counties that I service. It's Pike, Letcher, Lloyd, Johnson, Lawrence, Martin. So my previous background is, I owned and operated a treatment facility for 10 years. Prior to that, my dad had owned it. So I had been in and out of treatment facility for quite a while, working with patients, doing intakes, assessments. I was also a counselor. So I got a lot of, they were already on the path of addiction. And waking up and being with my patients, not every day was a good day. I had a lot of hard days because I cared about these people. And at the time, sometimes they didn't care as much as I cared. So that was very, very hard and difficult. This job found me. I was approached, Carl was at my husband's school, and they were talking about needing to add another area prevention coordinator. And my husband slid my name right in there. I met a phone call with Courtney, met with Tom the next Tuesday, and it just worked out. So I'm in the schools. I have 4 children, and I truly care about the youth. And just like Tom, I'm the president of our softball league, so I'm involved with the youth very much. But to be on the prevention instead of the treatment, it's a game changer for me. It's amazing. And something Allie and I didn't realize, I didn't connect who Allie was when Carl was adamant, you need to speak with Allie. I said, I will speak with that, So I talked to Allie, and when she walked in the office for her interview, I walked up, I said, I know you. And she was like, I know you. And I was like, I asked if she went to Alma Mater. She didn't. And she was actually a camp leader to a summer camp I went to when I was in high school. And then assisted coaching one of our other staff members' soccer team while she was in college as well. So, I mean, I am one of these that Alec had previously poured into. So it's interesting to see. And then we will go, Mr. March.
She's just covering herself. Oh.
No, she's not much. But she's interesting.
My name is Mark Davis, and everybody asks me what's your title, what you do. I basically say, well, people come to me and say, hey, you. I get things done. I work on everything from the building to the vehicles to make sure the trailers are ready to roll. I work on the youth programs, trying to get all what there is to get done for camp, what's to be donated, and et cetera. I try to make sure all the needs are met for what we need. And my main purpose or my main thing I do each and every day is On the Move. And On the Move is a mobile drug prevention program that we can take from school to school. We do 7th and 10th graders, and I know we're probably going to answer this in the questions here in just a minute, but basically what we do is we do 7th and 10th graders, and while we do these 2 grades, we are testing. We do a pre-test survey that we send out beforehand, and then of course while they're on the trailer, that's our mobile classroom, and we give them the same test because with more of the information about some of these substances that we're asking about on the pretest. We send all this stuff to University of Kentucky. They do comparison studies. We send it back to schools. That allows them to see what the numbers they're seeing. It also helps us obtaining funding. But the main purpose that like I said, this is more than a job. This is a passion. This is a mission. Talk to the kids to get them on a trailer. The reason we have the trailer, at first, when our first trailer we had, it was kind of like we wanted to have our own little family room, okay? Because that's what we used to do growing up, right? We had our family room, we had our family time. We'd sit at the dinner table, we'd sit in the family room, and we'd talk about things. We've lost that connection. We don't do that anymore. We play on these little cell phones and gadgets. We don't have time for one another. We'll sit right 5 of us at the table. Nobody knows what anybody's talking about because they're playing with their gadgetry, So we've lost that connection with our kids. And in the trailer, we start talking about, like Carl was talking about, we talk about, the gateway drugs. We start talking about the pathways to addiction. And it kind of goes about what Robin was saying, some of these kids that we're talking to, they can see that we're sincere in our hearts of what we're talking about and what we mean. And so much so, we start talking about, you can be that one that can break this cycle. You know, you can be, we need your help doing this. We've got to transform this region. You know, we've got to bring it back. We need your help. And so much to say, I know Robin and I can, last couple of weeks, we were in school last week, but a couple weeks prior to this, so much from getting out to these kids. Like I said, we talked about the gas, like the tobacco, alcohol, marijuana, but probably our biggest thing that we have right now is the vaping. It is overtaking our youth big time. They have no idea what's in it. Nobody does. They don't know the chemicals, the dangers. We don't know the long forecasted future, what's going to happen, the health risks associated with these things. And we know the trend has come from the tobacco market, what's happening to cigarettes. So we can assume it's probably going to be a lot worse because some of the stuff that we're seeing right now, we know the nicotine salts in them. We know it's already 2 times more addictive than tobacco nicotine. But anyway, get back to what I was talking about. We've had this happen we can 2 or 3 times here in the last few weeks. So sincere, these kids have gotten out. And Robin came over to me, she said, Mark, you got to these kids. These kids are coming in. And the girl just the other day. And she wouldn't get her sold. She said, no, big trouble. Gave her a bite. Demonstrators. As this has happened several times this year. They can see the sincerity in your heart. We're trying to help them. We're trying to reach out. We want to help them. We want to break that pathway to addiction. We want to stop it right now. So that's it kind of in a nutshell. But I travel the country, 33 counties I'm in right here. But hey, I've been in West Virginia, Tennessee with the trailer. I've been everywhere with it. So I worked 6 years prior. I left for about 3 years. I'm back. So I'm back home. So sorry for taking that so much time.
That's all.
Thank you. So Mark touched on it briefly about our data collection. And so the way that we organize that, if you are getting one of these prevention programs, specifically the 3 that I mentioned previously, you will coordinate with me and then I will send out a free survey link. Typically it's through Google Forms, but if a hard copy was needed, we can use that. And then while they are in the schools providing the programming, they do the post survey. We collect those surveys, we give them to our evaluators, which we pay, and then they create an evaluator's report. And as Carl mentioned, these programs are free. So our kind of, you allow us to come in, you give us the time. Most of our programs take about 45 minutes. On the Move is a little bit of an exception to that, as detailed in the video. But what we're able to do is get these evaluator reports and give them to the FRISC so they can use them in their grant reports. And what we've been blessed to see is that On the Move has a 38% growth rate from free to post surveys in their knowledge of the various substances and what is being communicated to them while they are within the program. And so I will move on to our next question with you guys. And this is kind of more in our technical aspects for a minute. So why, and we touched on it briefly, why is it important that UNITE's prevention programs begin at an early age and continue through all grade levels? We'd like to take that.
I'm out of talk. So, you know, one of the things that we know is, and one of the problems that it really is plagued me is even though we know that we're good at what we do, the administrators in the schools, the teachers in the schools, they're like, oh, this is good. When your presentation was one of the best presentations, or who cares? As soon as I leave, these kids, you know, half of them don't live with either one of their parents, right? And so, you know, for us to have the opportunity to be there, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, right? The messaging being the same, the fact that we know that they're a part of our team, this is a person that cares about my future, this is why they're coming here. I think it's the only option at this point, right? We've been vying for legislation to, you know, for schools to mandate K through 12, you know, drug education. And whether it be through Too Good for Drugs or whatever that curriculum is going to be, because everybody understands the need for it. But we're starting to see it. You know, when we're coming back to these schools year after year, time after time, building these relationships, this is what's going to change the culture. And that's what our job is.
And I agree. And we talked about the importance of that and what's unfortunate is we are not introducing anything new into these children's lives. They're all familiar. I come from a background from 2011 until I came to Unite about almost 7 years ago, community mental health, CPS investigations, and a third grader taught me what a Xanax bar was. Well, I had very many close relatives that have struggled with addiction. I'm not a person in recovery, but do have good experience through them. And the third grader taught me what a Xanax bar was and showed me how their parents would inject. And so if we're not introducing anything new to them.
Sorry to do that. So we obviously do fourth grade seniors, and fourth is our youngest right now. I will say the fourth grade, I love them the most. They are the ones who have the most questions. They aren't afraid to ask the questions. The older you get, the more they know, the more they're silenced. They feel like they can't ask questions with their peers in the room, especially if they're in assembly style. So the younger they are, the more interested they are. It is in their life. And so they do have these questions. We're not around the living room TV or the kitchen table anymore. We can't ask for parents. Some of them don't have their parents. And so we're here opening up a world to them where they can ask the right questions and we can give them the right information. So the younger you start, the more questions they have, the questions they have at a younger age, we're able to give them the correct information to make better choices as they get older.
Yeah, so there's so many things that come into mind on the importance of it. Most of our youth that we're seeing, they've already experienced trauma and chaos. And it's so normalized in their environment. They don't even have a clue that something's wrong. I've had numerous kids, because before I ever speak to them about any of the curriculum, I know that they need to understand the organization that I represent. And they also need to know something about me. Otherwise, I'm just some person coming in telling them what to do or however they're viewing it. So I always say, hey, look, you need to understand a little about me. I'm gonna get vulnerable with you, and I tell them, hey, this is what my family looked like. This is what I became, even though fourth grade, sixth grade version of me would have told you that was not ever what I've become. And so many of those kids, though, and telling them about those and just being vulnerable with them, they're sitting there saying, it's my family. My family's like that. And those opportunities, I do my best not to miss them because they need to understand, hey, it doesn't have to be your path. You don't have to be that. And it's, man, that's where the change has to happen. And we get the opportunity. It's a privilege to do what we're doing. 100%. And so the kids, whenever you're real, and the kids that have been through those kind of things and they're dealing with that, they can spot a counterfeit too. The rejection, the abandonment, all that stuff, that's the stuff that I can tell you personally, that was absolutely the plague that I felt my whole life. That was the truth that circumstances spoke over me, is that I was unwanted, that I was a mistake. That's absolutely the way I went about life, feeling those ways. I wouldn't have verbalized that, but I felt that way. And I could say, but looking back, I wish somebody would have came and said, hey, no, you are valid. You are one. You are the one. And so it's just injecting hope in them. They need it, desperately need it. And so, yeah, that's one of the things. So second and third graders, I've been to probably half a dozen grade schools where that's the kids that the youngest that they found with vapes. And what's a second or third grade kid's life going to look like if that's where it's starting at? Because most of what we're seeing with treatment and with addiction, with all that, it usually starts between 12 and 15. There's no, that's nothing compared to you starting with grade school kids. You know, and so if we don't do something, shame on us.
So that kind of leads into our next question. I touched on this a bit in the introduction of our programs, of how we have the ability to mold what these schools need within to our presentations. And so what would you all, or one of you say is, how is the content for these presentations determined? A few of you are working on assisting building some of the new ones that we've seen the need for the upcoming school year.
And so, Ethan, how would you say that our content is determined for these presentations? Because you've had a big hand in coming up with ideas for what we see as a need.
Yeah, so, like me and Ally are working on the new smart one that we talked about. And Courtney's like, okay, we gotta have these learning objectives in there. And so I think something that we kind of use to, fuel a new idea for a new presentation or something like that is these stories that we have from the schools is that we come back and, Courtney can say, I think she keeps counting how many times that we're calling her and we're like, hey, look what happened, this is what this kid said this to me today and stuff. And so I think it's like, Ally had somebody say, hey, we need something for social media for middle school. And I think that that's what kind of is makes the learning objectives for these new programs is that we know what these kids are going through. And like Tom said, we're the front line. So we're coming back with these new ideas each and every week. That kind of answer your question?
Thank you, Ethan. And so, yes, so we're able to take our learning objectives, still meet that data need, make sure it's science-based. There's a ton of research poured into it. And Carl and I sat for many months and updated our rating to be able to meet 4th and 5th grade and then middle school before it was just him and I on the prevention team before we got the rest of our lovely staff. And really work together. And essentially one of our creative processes is, again, when it was just Carl and I said, Carl, give me this presentation like you're going to do it. And so then I would be manically typing the presenter guide to try to keep up with what Carl was doing so that anybody could go in and have these keynotes that we needed to hit. But as you can see, they have so many wonderful individual characteristics and stories that are not to be missed. So we're able to provide that aspect as well. And so they all bring something different and we're able to put that in as well to what the school needs with the middle school and things along those lines. School will come up to, I know, Robin and Mark as well and say, hey, we really have some kids struggling with this. And even if it takes us off the presentation a little bit, that's not what it's about, as Joe said. We want to be able to give them what they need. And so that's kind of how we. Yeah.
So, like, speaking about what they was a couple of weeks ago, we got called to Lincoln County, and she said, well, I would love if you come talk to our Unite Club. And so I thought, I'm expecting like 30 kids. And I said, well, yeah, that's great. How many kids are in your Unite Club? 240 kids. And so she said it was at the end of the school year, about this time. And prom was coming up. And so I said, what if we, touch on that and kind of like tell them, what not to do or resources that they can use. And she was like, we would love that. The kids actually want something like that. So I think the morning of, I threw something together that morning, sent it to Courtney and I said, do you approve? She was like, absolutely, go for it. And we have never gave that presentation before. And then there I am in front of 240 kids talking about something. But, I give them my experience. I was like, okay, actually, I've been talking about all day. The big room in there is where I had prom. So we've been joking about that. So I tell them my experience. Yeah, this is this month. So it's just, I give my experience of what that looks like. And, that we're catering to the schools and to the kids and what they need. Just want to add that.
No, exactly. And what they don't mention graciously in all their spare time, as you can tell, there's so much of it. They stay up to date on every bit of current research that is going on in this, every bit of scientific based information. We are constantly sending articles. They'll send us articles constantly, keep us up to date on any new laws, trends, anything that's occurring. Allie's husband is an administrator in the school. He tells us what he has seen. Like we are very.
TikToks.
Ethan, it's on TikTok, right?
Okay, like just the other day, I saw that bait and it had you can play Tetris on the bait on the side. And I'm like, well, that's not catering to, a 30 or 40-year-old. That's strictly a kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can use the bait and then you can turn to the side and play Tetris.
So, we also use our own common sense and to what we're seeing happening. There's not one high school that I've been to in the last 2 years and really probably since COVID for sure, that hasn't had ambulance calls to that school because of Delta 8, Delta 10, all of the other THC variants that are out there that are sold right in gas stations, unregulated, and nobody is really addressing that. We're talking a lot about vaping, but these are the things that are sending kids to the hospital. And so it's something that in conversations that we've had with school resource officers, with administrators in schools, the family resource service centers, this is something that's been needed. And so, Josie just had the request from the challenge campaign, hey, these kids want to talk about THC. This is the stuff that they've been vaping. Well, they're not the only ones. There's a lot of our kids in schools that are vaping marijuana, and the levels that are in this thing is crazy. It's nuts. Like, because they're converting CBD into THC. They call it Delta 8, but this is THC. It is getting these kids absolutely stoned out of their minds, drooling on themselves in the corner, so that people are Narcan because they think they're on opiates. I mean, it's nuts. And so this is something that we're addressing. We're going to address it with our parent presentations, with our basketball camps. With our basketball camps, we don't tell them, we don't advertise it on the flyer. But once we get all of the kids into the gym, it's all the parents out. When we go to the auditorium at the school that we're at, or the cafeteria, wherever we're going to do the thing. And this year, we're going to talk about vaping. We're going to talk about Delta 8 because a lot of the kids are getting vapes from their parents, unfortunately. And we're going to talk about fentanyl because that is a trend that we're starting to see elsewhere in the country. Are fentanyl analogs that people can get intoxicated from fentanyl from a vape pen, and overdoses in South Carolina are from vaping are now surpassing intravenous overdose deaths. That's crazy, and so we better get ahead of it. So that's what I'm saying with common sense. We know that this is something we are behind a little bit on. We should have already done this because this is something that we're facing right now. So we're doing it right now. Now, that being said, next step we know is marijuana. We're not talking about the weed that Granny smoked. We're talking about high potency THC vape pens and edibles that are 80, 90% THC that are causing psychosis, early onset schizophrenia. And these states that have already legalized marijuana, we've already seen it happen. We should have learned the lessons, but we haven't because some people are ready to make some money. And so we're going to legalize it here. And so we better have this in place. We need to have it set up so that we're ready to educate these kids on what this is going to do to you. If you decide that you're going to ingest this, this is what your life is going to look like, and we're going to be ready for it. And so that's the kind of stuff that we're trying to do. Sorry.
Yes. So one of the greatest capacities of these roles that we're able to fill right now is the relational side of it too. So, that's a big thing. Anytime I'm in a school or making an introduction, it's like, hey, look, I'm a tool in your tool belt. Use me as much as possible, but also don't let it just be limited to what we're doing. All we're offering you is what we're doing right now. But really, this is the spearhead of like, hey, you can pick up the phone when you have a local problem. You're the local authority. Call me and say, hey, do you have a resource for this? If we don't have one, we'll find it. We'll find somebody that does have one because it's not about Operation Unite or any of us. It's about our society, our communities, our children, they all need us. So it's really about building those bridges. There's a lot of walls, a lot of red tape, a lot of nonsense that is causing us to continue to be a problem. We have to stop it at the source. So that's where it starts. Those relations. We're all relational. That's why we're here.
So Judge Pruitt, I don't know if I'm gonna speak for Josie on this because he's your guy. All right, so.
I'll just start before I leave.
That's right. Be one-on-one for you, okay? Just stop.
Let me just throw out there, our kids, I grew up working, I have roughly 30 kids, also have active at one time. And I have at least 6 who are testing off the chart, which I think is 4,000 or 5,000 nanograms. And it's all from the voters. They're sick. I need help.
Yep.
I mean, like I said, we have talk here. It's not right here. They're great. But it's not. And social media. Oh, These kids are destroying. And they just can't comprehend. Usually boys are going to change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, just to add to that, talking about the schools and so forth, I can tell you how many, like, kind of what Carl said earlier, I can tell you a number of school districts who contacted me and said, hey, Mark, need you to come up here because we've got a big problem going on with THC right now. One of our former detectives, he's now sheriff in another county, called us, Mark, needs to come. He said, we just lost an 11-year-old child. He's vaping, in a vape load of THC, he overdosed and died. So not only we bring on the move up there and do the school system, the 7th, 10th graders, I know Carl went up there and did vaping presentations as well to try to put as much emphasis in that school as we possibly can. But you're exactly right. I mean, and the thing about it is, we talk about this on the trailer, on the move education trailer. We talk about how these kids are being targeted because of that social media. They create these social media access pages. As soon as they do, and that just allows access for these companies to target them, they start sending pop-ups and videos and everything off of social media sites. And that's how they're being targeted now. You know, us, it was magazines and TV ads, you know, it's different. They're getting second by second information where we only got it once a month, you know, so they're allowing a lot more access into these kids' minds in their daily lives.
Another problem we have is the Ridge, Rivendell, you know, they used to really take our kids who are positive THC. You know what they're saying now? It's just THC.
Yeah.
So it is next to impossible to do it. And we even up there with one of the future report to intense total bracket. It's still not working.
Use Josie as much as you want to use. Yeah, I'll be there. Thank you.
Yeah, we're here to help, so.
We'll do a panel discussion.
So something, and Josie touched on it about us being relational in the school, and I'm going to begin this one with Robin, is each of our staff, our prevention team, especially our area prevention coordinators, have a Bitmoji sticker that they give to these students that has a messaging of for them. And they usually give them out like candy and bread. I'm surprised some of you aren't slack with them on you right now because it's kind of a competition to who can get them on people's backs. Or their vacations, yeah. So,
Running low.
Robin and the rest of you, when you go into these schools, regardless of the presentation, what is the primary message that you try to convey to the students? Regardless of the presentation that you want them to know from you, what are you trying to provide them?
So I am just trying to empower them with hope and to make good decisions, because it all comes down to, at the end of the day, right? You have your bad choice or your good choice. And I try to tell them every time, if you take nothing from what I have said, make the right choice, because the wrong choice can ultimately end your life and make you a drug addict just like me. It could completely destroy any future that you've ever had. So initially for me, it's hope and to make a right choice, because these kids need to hear that. These kids don't, about 90% of them, I would say, don't go home to the white picket fence, right? They don't go home to the fairy tale, happy, lovely life that we all in our minds like to picture that they do. They go home to rough circumstances. They go home to unbearable things. I did as a child, right? So that is initially what turned, I don't want to say turned me, but my bad choices from all of that suppressed anger and bitterness I had through my childhood eventually rose up, and then I eventually started using drugs to drown that, right? And I try to instill in these kids to just make good choices, because if you make good choices, then a good life will follow that. It's just how it is. And like Josie was saying, you don't have to let your circumstances define who you're going to be in life, right? You don't have to say, well, this is my normal family life, so this is how my normal family life is going to be. You can rise above that situation, right? You can change that for yourself, because a lot of these kids don't have people pouring into them like they should, encouraging them, cheering them on. I have a 15-year-old son and a 12-year-old daughter, and sometimes I think, man, I don't want to cry because my eyelashes be burning me.
It's a struggle.
Yeah.
Eyelashes.
And so when I go into these schools, when I look into these kids' eyes, some part of me thinks, man, had I not, had something not come in and radically changed who I was, then my kids probably look like that, you know, probably look like that right there, because they tell me stories from school and I'm like, because we have open discussions now, like mama doesn't hold anything back. I'm like, listen, who'd you talk to today? Was you offered anything? What's going on in your school? Not in like a crazy way, right? But I want to know about their day every day of my, every day I say, how was your day? How was your day? And it gets annoying to him sometimes because my little girl, she's just like boring, lazy, sloppy for the whole entire year. That's the only reply I got. Boring, lazy, sloppy, right? But you have to know what's going on because they're not going to come up and tell you, hey, this is what happened and this is what happened. But if you're consistent, like you were saying, you know, what was that question at the beginning? I'm sorry.
What made you come back? No, what
Right.
made you come back?
So when you're consistent with kids, right, when you are a consistent part of their lives, when you're pouring into them all the time, then you're going to get results, right? But back to that question, it's hope and to make the right choice, you know, because your life matters. They all matter. If they could just grasp that, hey, I'm going to become something better than this. I'm not going to let this decision decide who I'm going to be. I'm going to rise above this, you know, lifestyle. So, yeah.
And one of Robin's abilities, when she's in the gymnasium for On the Move for the roasters and the go-kart parts, and I've heard her do this, and I've been blessed to watch her grow over these last 6 months and get comfortable with what she's doing, because those kids in the off day, they baptize you by fire. Some of them are, and I've heard her have these conversations about what do you want to be when you grow up, and what does that look like for you, and what, you know, really have those conversations. But something you said, Robin, about the fairy tale life reminded me, and Ethan's correct, sometimes I count the phone calls I get, but we are such a good team that I love it because they're telling me what we need and what, more important, what these students need. And Ethan had shared a story with me recently, along the fairy tale.
Yeah, I think she did that on purpose.
Well, it's just, she said, right, Ethan wouldn't mind to share a little bit about.
So building off of Courtney's question, I think the message that I try to convey to these kids is that, and Josie said earlier, you know, somebody does love you, okay? And I tell them, I'm like, I don't even know you, okay? But I love you. And, you know, they're like, what? You know, they get scared because they don't hear that. So my fiance, she works in CPS for the state, actually Broadcasting County. And so those kids specifically, I'm like, okay, I know for a fact what some of you all go through at home, you know? And so she used to come home in my old job and she would say, man, you know, that's awesome. You know, she'd tell me the stories of what she had to deal with and stuff. And so now I feel like I help the kids at school. She helps them at home. But yes, so the story that me and Robin actually, that was Gary Kennedy last week?
No,
So, we were talking about, we were doing a vaping presentation for the 5th grade. And this little girl, she was sitting right in the front, and I said something about how smoking was encouraged for pregnant women. Like the ads back then had pregnant women smoking. And so I said, just imagine your mother, you know, smoking a cigarette, and your baby brother or sisters, you know, she's pregnant with your baby. So this little girl just yells out and she says, I don't see my mom. And so, you know, you kind of like, man, how do you tackle that, you know? And you don't want to ignore them. You don't want to make them feel like they're, you know, the oddball out over there. So I said, well, just imagine, you know, just any pregnant lady. So then afterwards, we went to talk to her, and I was like, I'm sorry, you know, like she was like, oh, no, I don't know. And she said, she's in jail. And she said, but I have a stepmother. And then she starts explaining to me. So 5th grade, how old is it? That's like 10 years, like 10, 11, 12. So 11-year-old, okay, is telling me that her life is like Cinderella. And she said, I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I've got an evil stepmother. I've got 2 stepsisters that are mean. And she said, and I said, so are you telling me that you're Cinderella? And she said, yeah, basically. And I said, well, you know how the story is, huh? And she's like, well, yeah, no, I've never really thought about that. But she said, I'm treated different than her 2 daughters. Um, you know, it's sad because, and then she also made comments about, you know, like you can sometimes tell when these kids do vape and stuff like that, because she was talking about how like changing the stuff inside the vape. And she was like, yeah, when it gets burnt, and you know, she's talking about these certain flavors, and I'm like, okay, you're telling me that you have, you know, involved yourself with those activities, right? And then I walked up to her and I was like, you know, so you vaping? And she's like, no, that's just my cousin, you know. But at the end of the presentation, you know, we're actually looking into saving the trees, I guess, with these high clickers. And so, like when we do the end of the post survey, we want to do just where they go through the PowerPoint, they can click their answer. But me and Courtney were talking about what we're going to lose with that is question number 11 is, you know, what is one thing that you've learned today in your presentation? So that little girl was sitting there and I said, tell me something that you want me to know that you don't want to tell me, you know? And so she actually didn't have a pencil. She didn't have a paper. And I said, how did you not get a pencil or paper? And you're the one that passed it out, you know? And she said, well, I'm not selfish. And so I turned around and she was up against the wall crying. And I asked her, I said, what happened? And so we were there at like 2:50, school was getting out. And they said that one of the teachers came up to her and said that she needed to hurry up, that it does not matter if she put, because it wasn't a grade.
Wow.
And she said he wanted to know something about, you know, and so she peeked her head around the corner of the cafeteria. And I said, come here. And she sat down and she was like, you know, it's just a shame that kid has to deal with, you know, they want to get something out and they can't say it. And so I don't think she said, I don't know which one thing I want to tell him. She could never decide. She left. She never wrote anything down. But I mean, I don't know, maybe I don't know if I'm in favor of that because
It's something to realize actually.
I can't believe that, you know?
Yeah, we're looking at different ways to still incorporate that question because it is something that we get from them. That is so important and it doesn't go towards our data. It's not, you know, able to do that, but it goes towards what we're able to put into it. And it's something we added this year. And some of them are hilarious. Some kids are just too cool and they'll say, nothing, I already knew all this and for it. Yeah, Carl did better was what somebody wrote. So, you know, these kids, it's tough sometimes, and sometimes we battle struggles with the schools. And so Ethan mentioned one of the barriers that we have. What are some other barriers that you all noticed within the schools that maybe we could work on addressing with counties and things like that, or that community partners could help us with in addressing these schools, as far as being able to get in and do the prevention programming and things along those lines? Being one of them, I know, getting the ability to take their time.
Yes, there's so many that are, they're so protective of their instructional time.
Yeah.
Because of standardized testing and the way things work now, and the education system is, you know, just asking so much more of all the teachers and the administrators, you know, and especially the students. And so my wife teaches kindergarten. Kindergarten is crazy. You know, I mean, these kids are reading by the time they get out of kindergarten. It's crazy. They get like 20 minutes of recess per day. Well, that's anyway. We won't talk about it. So instructional time is a big one. At first, like it's one of those first barriers that we have to overcome. We have to convince the principal that this is valuable enough. Now, the FRISC usually can do that because there is a drug education component in their grant, which brings money into that school. They need the FRISC. They're the lifeblood of the school. They've got their fingers on the pulse of everything that's going on. They're the coolest people. It's the hardest job in the school. They're the best. I love them. Now, so a lot of times that's who we go through. We don't call principals saying, hey, we got this great thing to come to your school. They ain't got time for that. But if we go through the FRISC, it's them, and then it'll fit this, and it's free for them. They don't have to pay for it, and we're going to share this data with them to put back into their grant. then we get into the schools that way. And so we can overcome that barrier. When we get there, after we've done the presentation, if the principals are a part of it, like in Harlan County, the entire school board and the superintendent came and sat through a whole session on the trailer. And like they were big-eyed when they left because of some of the questions that these kids were asking us at the end. Something they didn't understand. They didn't understand the need for this. So once the principals and the administration can get a grasp from that, then at these schools now, once we go to a school from that point on for the rest of the year, we've got open invitation. You know, once they see us interacting with these kids, not just in our presentation in 45 minutes, and then we're bouncing, you know, I want grade by grade at least, you know, if not classroom by classroom. And then at lunchtime, like I understand, I could go sit down at Academy and eat me a lunch or something like that, you know, give me some time to decompress. Do you know how much cooler it is if I eat square pizza? You know, and hang out with these kids. Yeah. Yeah, there was one day where there were some kids already in the lunchroom, and I'd already spoke to them that morning. I walked in, and so they started like one of them started saying, "Hey, it's Carl!" And so they started like cheering and clapping. And I was like, "Look, I need to call somebody real quick. I was not going to be able to take my phone calls because I wasn't important enough." You know what I mean? I needed some grounding real fast, and I did, and it worked. You know, and so. Anyway, I just know that is one of the barriers, but once that is overcome, once we get past that, and some of that has to do with folks like you, Judge Pruitt, and now I got to meet a guy named Ben Wilcox. He's the Kentucky State School Safety Marshal, and so he's the guy. We've convinced him that we're doing something of value, and so we're going to be speaking, or we're going to get to be a part of his speech at the Safe Schools Conference, you know, next month in June. And so he's a guy that's in charge of all the school resource officers. So the school resource officer says, "Hey, this is something that our guy has said is of value. We need this in our school." It's gonna break a bunch of those barriers down. And once that happens, who knows? Who knows what the next step is? Tom's talking about us expanding to 10 counties and hiring, you know, a few more people to help do it. You know, if we're gonna do what we think that can be done, it's all hands on deck. You know, there's gonna be many more of us that are going to be needing to do this kind of thing.
And Carl, you touched on those barriers, and I know with particularly Mark with the On the Move program, because we do have this component in the gym that utilizes motorized vehicles. Mark, you see a different set of barriers as well.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, that's what I was going to actually comment on it before we talk about. But the biggest thing is, of course, when you, let's say you want to bring something on that gym and put any type of card on it, we have, you know, it's a motorized, but it's a battery motorized. And everything on our carts, we have two different carts that we use, has a rubber composite type of surface, which is no different than a tennis shoe that we wear. But, you know, these gym floors are sacred ground, you know what I'm saying? So you're not going to harm or foul or scratch our floor, you know. We get that in anything we do. And here's the thing we've actually done this year to kind of help sell it a little bit more. But and that goes back to what Carl said. After you start building that relationship with that new service coordinator, because that is the lifeline. That is the one that you need to get into in schools. That's the ones that make things happen in the public schools for us. They're the ones that make sure the kids get what they need. The ones that are hungry or don't have clothes or whatever it may be. But yes, after you build up that relationship, it's a win-win from that point on. We actually put a little film segment together. We had Ethan to do it this year because I kept telling us we need something, just a 1-minute video to kind of show the parts and stuff and what we do on the gymnasium floor. So some of these new schools and areas we're going to are kind of a little skeptical, so we can show them what exactly what it does. So
Not one tournament since the 80s.
don't get into what some of my side down there. But anyways, to kind of get to that, Courtney knows, but Tom probably don't know, but since in the last 2 weeks, I am now scheduled into December already with On the Move. And I've got a request about that thick in my little 3-ring binder because we make them email us a request. And I I would say and I've actually scheduled one in March yesterday. But I probably easily got another 2 months I could schedule easily right now on request. And I've just been trying to make contacts. Of course, yesterday's election day. A lot of people were not in, and I was supposed to call back today or tomorrow. So, yeah, that's kind of one of my biggest barriers is the gymnasium. You know, and of course, a lot of times people want to say, hey, just arrive at 10 minutes till 8, and we can't do that because it takes us at least an hour and a half to set the program. We've got to unfold it. It's kind of like a transformer on wheels. We have to unload it and we have to unload all the stuff out of it. Of course, the parts weigh about 200 some pounds a piece, and we have to go through those doors that they have center dividers in. You have to turn them sideways and all that. And everything has to be transported in and out. And you have to load and unload. So it's an hour and a half setup just about, an hour and a half breakdown. We can do it a little bit better, but yeah, then we pack up and travel to next school. And you know, then you have to find then you have to find an adequate place in the school facility that can set up and be level, because the trailer, you know, in order for it to work, function, fold down, it needs to be on a level surface. So there are some that, you know, like I said, we build up that relationship and we know the school and who that person is. They're wanting us back every year. Just like this year, they're like, Mark, you're back. Because I have been gone for about 3.5 years. So they're back, you're back. And so they're emailing me like crazy, which I don't mind it. I mean, it's work, you know, it's not only work, it's a passion. So it's a ministry. We kind of get back to what I was saying here a minute ago. You know, my goal is every day. I pray this every day. If I can just reach one kid today, if I can change that one kid's mind, the direction they're going, I've done my job. I've done my job. Because we've seen it. Robin and I have experienced it a lot this year. We've been in different schools. I keep using Robin because she travels with us all the time now. When we go in these counties and I'll get to them and she'll come over to me and she'll say, here, some kid give me a bike, or I'll have a kid give me a bike. You know, it's one for the team. You know, I'll move on. We made a difference.
So that, honestly, the most recent testimony that Mark's talking about, we've got so many, like, you can talk all day for something, just in the last 3 months of interactions with kids and them making good choices. But we were there and I was getting help with on the move. And so Rob and I were working the road street. So usually we kind of get on each end of it. And immediately, you know, Robin shared her story with this group of kids. This girl just immediately she gravitated for Robin. And so I knew that Robin was going to be with her. So I was running from side to side. Robin poured into it for 20 minutes. And then the girl went out onto the trailer with Mark. So it's right before lunch. And so they let us eat lunch in the cafeteria that day. And as we were headed through the gym towards the cafeteria, this girl came back in the gym. She runs us down. She's asking me before we go on lunch. She's like, what's your secret? So I'm like, walk and talk. So I'm just pointing into her and she said, well, I was vaping, I was this. The girl's broken. She's dealing with so much. And as we're going through there, I'm like, the first thing you do is vaping. You have to make that choice. Sorry, it's just starts to tell me a lie. You know, I'm like, I'm not judging you. I just love it. Too valuable to give yourself to something. You can change other people's lives right now. You can be the difference maker. And then she leaves, goes to find Robin. And as the girl's talking to me before she leaves, she says, you know, you guys are thinking on this trailer, the stuff that you're teaching us, the fact that all of you guys care about us. Man, it's changing things. This is coming from a middle school girl. Man, it's wonderful. And it was a picture of the whole team. You know, if I'm playing basketball and I hit a 3-point shot to win the game, my foot's not going to say, look at that hand showing off. You know what I mean? Like, we're in our roles. We're part of the same body, accomplishing the same goal. So, like, none is greater than it. But it's the impact of that. So, you know, kid after kid just saying, hey, care about it. That's the biggest thing I see. I ask almost every group when we're done, like, hey, I got one question. Do you believe I care about you? And it's usually unanimous for the most part, yes. Because that's the place where outcomes can change when they know that you genuinely care about them and it affects something. It changes the whole environment. And that's what this team is doing. Like, I'm not saying just because I'm biased, I'm telling you, I can show you example after example of what's something you learned from today's presentation that I can be one that makes a difference, that people care about. Keep my head up. That this puts me on a path that will affect my whole life. That that I'm motivated because of what you guys, showed me today to change. Those are the responses that the impact is having. It's gonna be, it's awesome. We're all just part of it.
And I will say, we are male heavy in our staff, but these men, they call me and they shed probably more tears than we do after these kids. They'll call me and they say, these kids have gutted me today, like they have, and they share stories with me and I'm like, I'm not ready for this, like I'm trying to type something and I'm crying. Mark touched on something for a second in terms of scheduling and how to schedule with us. Most of the scheduling will come, we ask that it come through an email, particularly to me, and then as it goes through the different programs or counties, I help, scope it out into who it will go to. And so for On the Move, I will almost always send you to Mark Davis. I am directionally challenged, and I'm not afraid to admit that. So he tries to keep them very neatly organized in what makes sense, but I would have them in Paducah one day and probably Boyd County the next if it was, my way to do it. And I think for me, on my end, the barrier would be I send out our pre-surveys and just getting those done, before they were to come out. And so I try to really stress to the staff, and they're so busy, like Carl said, we have all this, the empathy for our educators because we understand, on personal levels and just what we see. But also we want to be able to give them that data so they can use that in their grants and their funding as well as our own. So without the pre-test, we can't compare the post-test. And I think that's one of the bigger barriers that we see. And so we're trying to implement other ways without losing some of the capacity of those questions that we have. And just to wrap it up, I believe we're cutting close at the end of our time. If anyone has an experience that you feel like has just confirmed your place in this position and what we're doing in these schools that you would like to share, please feel free to do so. And I'm looking at Allie because she shared a really wonderful one recently as well.
Yeah, so I have the privilege of doing my first school of both presentations. I was able to do anti-vaping first, and then a couple weeks later, I came back and did our internet safety for fourth and fifth graders, and sixth graders. So I did the anti-vaping first, and we talked about dopamine, and how the nicotine can affect that dopamine sensor in our brain. I use a lot of sports analogies, or just whatever I feel like the population of my demographics at that time is. Baseball season is really popular right now, softball season, so I talk about how hitting, when you go up to bat, what are you trying to do? We don't want to single it double or triple. We're always trying for that home run. And if you're lucky enough to get one, it's so exciting. That dopamine sensor is going off and the whole dugout comes out at home plate and they're cheering you on and the fans are cheering you on. And so you crave that feeling. So you're going to go to batting practice. You're going to do all these things to get that feeling again. Talk about how when you introduce nicotine, that will suppress those feelings eventually. So, vaping presentation done, I leave for the day, come back in 2 weeks and do the internet safety. And my sixth grade class is first, and this little fella comes up to me and he sees me as I'm getting my presentation ready, and his eyes get so big because I'm in the library. So they assume that it's library class. But his eyes get so big and he comes straight to me and he says, guess what I did? He's like, what? I had no clue. And he said, I got my first home run this weekend. I was like, oh my goodness. I said, way to go. I said, how do you feel? He says, I feel amazing. I've been doing more batting practice. I want to achieve that feeling again. So yes, way to go. A couple days later, I was at a softball game and he was there because it's in my hometown. And he sees me, points me out, comes straight to me, and he says, guess what I did? I got 2 home runs this last week in my tournament. And he said, I don't ever want to do a vape. I don't ever want to do any substances because I don't want to lose this feeling. I was like, and how blessed are we to be in these children's lives? Making a difference.
So one of the coolest, most powerful interactions I've had with kids. So I've got to coach Little League for the first year this year. And in just being active in the schools, I know a good portion of the kids now. And so they see that, Josie, you know, which I'm the enemy sometimes because I'm coaching the other team. You can remember all these kids. But we had finished a game and there was probably out of the 11 kids, I would say 7 or 8 of them that I'd interacted with in some capacity in the schools. And in the handshake line, I give all my kids 5 first and I follow it behind. So I was the last one going through the line with the other team's players. And just in that report that's been built with these kids so far, they all literally on the other team came and surrounded me and huddled and was like, how do we do? And how, like, there's a culture shift. And it's really God's will doing it. And to be able to just be a part of that, especially since, you know, it's my first chance at life, I spent it all on me, doing everything I put my hand to. And now I've been given a second chance and also the ability through a new lens to try and invest in others and seeing the fruit of that already just a few handful of months. It's changing for some of these kids and we're getting to be part of that. And so I will tell you, I want some real purpose. Start working with these kids. I'll tell you, like this is the time. The water's warm, get in, jump in head first. And it's just wonderful. We've had 3 middle school girls come and turn basically with tears in their eyes in the last couple of months because, man, the truth is being spoke out of love. And it's resonating and they're seeing and they're getting the full picture, you know, not just, and this information is, this is it. This is everything put together and show them, hey, you have to be intentional about your choices or your intentions will never become reality. And they're grabbing hold of it. It's changing things. It's awesome.
So when I tell you they're the hands and feet, like literally, it's every day, and it makes me emotional just hearing them talk about it and how blessed we are. And when I say we're excited for this new school year and to see what capacity we can bring to your communities, we are really excited. We wish the need wasn't there actually, but we're more than ready and willing to meet it. So I believe that concludes our panel. We have a few minutes if anybody does have a question, but we'll be around too if anybody thinks of anything.
And can I just need to say one more. Okay, so this is something that doesn't necessarily exist anywhere else, right? And so I'm privileged and blessed to be able to do this. I've made this statement before, don't tell Tom, but they pay me to do this and I can't believe it. It's crazy. And so
I can stop.
wouldn't I will still show up. Get rid of me. You fire me, but I'm still gonna show up. So
That's like the bad chick.
that's right. But this is something that you know, Unite has always had this ability since its inception to be just a little bit ahead of what is going to happen next. And I'm grateful for that. You know, when we came out and Unite was heavy law enforcement because some stuff needed cleaned up. That's for daggone sure. In the mid 2000s, it was a hot mess. And then when Unite started paying for people to go to treatment, Medicaid was not going to do that. Like there was no pressure on them to do that. They were not going to do it. So Unite started giving vouchers for people to go to long-term treatment. That was revolutionary. People were able to get help and be a mom or a dad again that never would have gotten help otherwise. And so this is the next step. You know, this is something that has to happen. We have to do this in our schools. And I'm glad that it's happening right here for us in Appalachian. And so we just want you all to come alongside and just hang out with us and support us and just tout our name out there wherever you can. Be like, look, these people are for real. They're the real deal. And that's what we say. When I'm talking to Josie, I'm like, hey, there's this guy, there's this lady. They're the real deal. He knows exactly what I mean. So that's what we're trying to be. And so y'all can help us.
Thank you all so much.